guys, welcome back. If I sound really sick, it's because I've had some sort of gross upper respiratory thing. But I do seem to be feeling a bit better now, so that's good news. But guys, it is finally here. I've been wanting to make this for like months. I finally got around to rewatching all the movies that I was able to watch, and the ones I wasn't able to watch, I was able to watch recaps and plot synopses on the internet. And I was finally able to give these things their day in court. I have a huge list of notes here. I got a huge freaking list of notes. Today I'm going to be ranking all 20 Marvel Cinematic Universe films by my personal opinion and my scoring system. Basically, I gave a lot of these pluses and minuses. I'll be talking about each movie, and I'll be giving my personal opinion on each movie and how I scored it on a 10-point basis. To be clear, the ones that I said were like 10 out of 10, it doesn't mean they're actually perfect movies. There is no such thing as a perfect movie, but they are the highest I can give the MCU. At the moment, I will re-rank probably after both Captain Marvel and Avengers 4. I probably won't re-rank after each one. I'll probably just wait till both of them come out and then re-rank, because Avengers 4 could definitely throw off a lot of my rankings. So at that point, I will be able to rewatch Infinity War again, which I'm honestly too sad to do right now. But I was able to watch a recap of it, and I think I put it in a place I'm comfortable with on this list. I'm pretty comfortable with this list. It is subject to change. I want to keep in mind also the number 2 and number 1 were very close for me, so keep that in mind as well. And this is a very personal opinion. There's a bunch of really controversial stuff on here, and you'll see what I'm talking about as I keep going. This is just, basically, I just tried to base this on somewhat subjective things, but also which movies I legitimately enjoyed the most. That's how I tried to base them. If there's a movie that I loved parts of more and hated other parts of it and didn't enjoy the movie as much as a whole, it's not going to rank as high. If there's a movie that was overall kind of meh, but I really liked some scenes in it and nothing about it really stood out as being bad, that's going to rank a little bit higher. Overall, just how much did I enjoy the film as a whole? And basically, this is just my personal opinion, so I'm going to get straight into it with my number 20 with a score of 5.5 out of 10 is going to be The Incredible Hulk. This was the second MCU film they ever did, and I don't hate it by any means. The best part is the end credits scene with Tony Stark, which is pretty cool. But it's a pretty generic plot. It just follows Bruce Banner and his girlfriend, and they're just running from the military and running from the military again. It's a pretty bland story. The characters don't really do much for me, especially for recasting of the Hulk later. It just kind of messes with it for me. I know that's not anybody's fault, but it just kind of, this one, to me, there are movies which have worse moments in the MCU. I will get to that in a minute. But this is the one that just falls flat for me and has the least going for it. There's just nothing that compels me to watch this one again. I skim-watched it for this review to rewatch it, and honestly, there's just nothing there for me. Next up at number 19 is going to be Iron Man 2. Now, this film is kind of a mess, but I also kind of love parts of it, because Tony Stark is probably either my first or second favorite character in the entire MCU. I go back and forth, in terms of characters, I go back and forth between him and Loki, and then there's like a whole bunch of others right behind them, like Black Widow, Bucky Barnes, like all the Guardians, but let's not go into my favorite characters right now. But Tony Stark, I gotta say, is one of, if not my favorite character in the series. So yeah, him having a movie, even if it's a mediocre at best movie, whatever. Gave this one a 6 out of 10. The positives to this movie are that Tony Stark is in it. The negatives are pretty much everything else. It's not cohesive at all. It does not stick together. There's so many plot lines going on, and the action is just really lackluster. It's basically an inferior version of the first Iron Man. That's pretty much all I have to say about it. Oh, and by the way, everything I'm reading off right now is sort of my lowest tier, my bottom tier, my fourth tier of movies. The ones that are pretty boringly mediocre for the most part, and also have some really bad parts. Next up at number 18, and I hate to do this because I really liked this one the first time I saw it, and then I saw it again and it fell apart for me. Avengers Age of Ultron. My opinions on the Avengers series are going to get interesting as I keep progressing upwards on this list, but I gotta say, I gave this one a 6.5. The positives are the action, The action sequences are well thought out, and I like what they did with Ultron and Jarvis. The whole part at the beginning where Ultron kind of wakes up, I thought that was cool. I don't mind Ultron as a character. The negatives are the fact that this basically feels like oversaturation. It just feels like filler, a lot of it. It's just action after action sequence after action sequence. And I like fast pacing, but there are movies I will get to later which do fast pacing so much better than this one. This one kind of just feels like a whole movie of the Battle of New York, and you know, I'm not too big on the Battle of New York, so, and we're gonna do that later, but, and I already did it in my review of the first Avengers film. I was gonna make an unpopular geek reviews out of this because I thought I was gonna like it a lot more than I did, because I did initially, but at this point, I dislike it just about as much as everyone else. Natasha and Bruce stuff is awful. That's the worst part of this movie. And in general, I'm sorry, I can't give it any higher than number 18. Next up at number 17, we're moving into my third tier of the kind of, the lower end of the spectrum, but these ones are all solid films. They're all 7 or above. I find them all solid films. Those were just the kind of meh ones. These ones actually have a lot going for them, but there are negatives. So anyway, the first one at number 17 with a score of 7 out of 10 is Doctor Strange. This movie gets points for the visuals and the originality of the things, and the acting is top-notch. I mean, Tilda Swinton, Benedict Cumberbatch, absolutely. It's really well done. The production's good, as always. Everything about this film was really good, but honestly, the story and the pacing, it's just really generic. The pacing suffers. The story is really generic. The villains are really generic. The time stone stuff is cool. I mean, this might sound like a nitpick, but there's a lack of Asian actors. It seems like the MCU is against using Asian actors or something. And, I mean, the plot's basically an Iron Man clone. It's not that different from something like Iron Man. So, in general, there's just not a ton going for this one. Next up at number 16 is Captain America the First Avenger with a score of 7 out of 10. This movie gets points for a rather cohesive and interesting plot line. I mean, it's a classic World War II story. You can't go wrong with that. I love the ending scene with the emotion between him and Peggy Carter when he's landing the plane. The action sequences are very solid, as they always are in the Captain America. Cinematography is good. And it gets negative points for the characters. I didn't find the villain all that interesting. I mean, he's interesting. He looks cool. And in terms of Captain America, I never found him that interesting of a character early on. And I guess it could be a little bit confusing if you're not paying a lot of attention to it, but those are only the major negatives for it. This one just doesn't really have a lot to make it stand out. It's just kind of there for me. Next up at number 15 is 7.5 out of 10. This is going to be really super controversial. Is the original Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, this is going to get worse as it goes on, but I gotta say, I absolutely love the characters in this movie. The cinematography is good, the setup, I love Gamora and Thanos teases going on here. The Infinity Stones are greatly implemented into this movie. I love the whole tease with Star-Lord Celestial. And then there's the plot and the pacing. You've got this whole, we need to save Xandar thing, which, spoilers for Infinity War, is really pointless, by the way. Also, it just doesn't feel cohesive. It just goes everywhere. And a lot of it's just character development, and the pacing, it slows to a slog for a lot of the movie. I'm sorry about Guardians of the Galaxy. I know people love this one, and I do too, but I have a hard time liking it as much as other people do. You saw me do unpopular geek reviews on the second Guardians film. Maybe I should do one on the first Guardians film, but honestly, there's not much to say about it, in my opinion, that I didn't just say here. So yeah, the second Guardians film's gonna be pretty high. Spoiler alert. This is where I'm gonna piss people off. And next up at number 14, something that should surprise no one, with a score of 7.5 out of 10, I'm being generous on this movie, is Thor: The Dark World. Look. As much as this movie deserves to be thrown in the garbage bin, you've got Loki and Frigga, and that's all I ever need. But to be completely honest, with the rest of this movie, yes, the characters and family dynamic get a giant plus. Everything that goes on with Loki's character arc here is amazing. And of course, I love the cinematography and the visuals, and them playing with portals. I don't mind some of the side characters, like Darcy and Ian are cool. The naked Selvig bit was a bit unnecessary, and then there's Jane, who I don't really mind on her own, or with Darcy, but when she tries to be romantic with Thor, it's just gross, and I don't like it. Because, why? Thor's just such a stagnant character in this movie. It's not his movie. I would say it's Loki's movie, except Loki's only in it for like a third of it, and then the other parts of the movie are just like this weird convergence thing. I mean, it's more like Jane's movie, but it's because she's like the main focus, but it's not even good. And then Jane just got dumped in the next movie, so yeah, I don't really know what to make of this one. And Malekith sucks. Moving on. Next up at number 13 with a score of 8 out of 10 is the original Ant-Man. Now, I literally just watched this movie because this was the last one I was watching reviewing for whatever reason. And, this movie is really solid. The characters in the movie are good, the visuals and effects are cool, it's an original idea, I love the sizing effects, it's got a lot of humor. Negatives here are some racial stereotypes. The pacing is really slow again at the beginning, and the villain isn't much to talk about, but overall it's a pretty solid ride. The next movie on my list, at number 12, with an 8 out of 10, is going to be Spider-Man Homecoming. Gonna give the plot and setting a big old plus from me, and of course Tony Stark is in this, that gets a big old plus from me, and there's a semi-interesting antagonist in this film. I do think he's overrated, but it's Michael Keaton, you can't go wrong with that. The humor is great in this film. And then there's Tom Holland himself. I'm not a big fan of Tom Holland. He's got this, like, annoying voice. High school drama hits a bit close to home for me. There's a lot of filler characters, like Michelle, and Liz is just there because she can be there. And Ned is kind of cool, but whatever. Also, Ned is kind of a stereotype, so there's that. I'm not trying to be a PC idiot, but it has been annoying after a while. Marvel's refused to use Hispanic or Asian characters for anything other than stereotypes. Yeah. But overall, still a very solid movie, and I got more enjoyment out of this than Ant-Man. So, yeah. Next up, we're moving on into my second tier, the ones that I started to think had a lot more positive and negatives. These ones are really solid films, but not necessarily my favorites of all time, but pretty darn solid. Number 11 is Iron Man 3 with an 8.5. This gets a plus for the characters and the setting, and I like the PTSD stuff with Tony. The twists are cool, the action itself is awesome, I love that plane sequence, there's a lot of good stuff going in this one. And then there's the fact that the pacing can be a bit off at times, the villain is kind of meh, and the extremist thing is kind of interesting, but it doesn't really play out that well, and the ending just sucks. It's too clean and tidy, because he's back at Age of Ultron with his suits, and she's kind of like, whatever, but still. I legitimately enjoyed this one much more than a lot of people. I mean, I even like Harley, that random kid. It's fun. I enjoyed the movie. Next up at number 10, here's going to be some controversy right here. I'm giving this one an 8.5. I'm giving it a very positive score. Is going to be Avengers Infinity War. This is why it's controversial. Everyone's going to be like, this is number 1 or number 2. For me, alright, I'll get into, there's a ton of positives here, straight up a bat. The plot and setup is pretty good. Thanos is a pretty good villain. The characters are great. There's a ton of them, but they're absolutely great. The ones that you end up caring about, you've got Gamora, you've got Thor, Rocket, Star-Lord, I guess. Yeah, that's about it in terms of characters I cared about. Tony Stark, Doctor Strange. Yeah, there's a good number of them, but then there's a whole bunch of characters I just didn't care for in this movie, and we'll get to it. Shock value was great. There was some good humor in this. Emotional stakes literally tore my soul apart, and the interactions between characters you wouldn't normally expect to get together, like Thor and Rocket. That worked wonderfully. The conclusion of this film kind of sucks. Yeah, there's a ton of underused characters in this movie. By underused characters, I don't mean characters who got killed off quickly after not having a lot of screen time, although I do mean characters who got killed off quickly after not having a lot of screen time. I'm not talking about characters who got killed off in the first 5 minutes of the film. I'm talking about characters that were supposed to be, like, important. Like, literally every single member of the Black Order. Just, we don't care. Like, it's like, oh, we're in it for like 5 minutes. The only one that was in it at all and felt at all substantial was Ebony Maw. I mean, they kept showing Proxima Midnight in the trailers. Maybe that's just me, but I thought she was going to be like this badass fighter, but no, she's just kind of in the movie. Like, what? Yeah, just so underutilized. And then there's characters we know and love, people like Bucky Barnes, who are just underutilized in this movie. Even Captain America is underutilized in this movie. Like, what? And I think just having too many characters with this oversaturation here, that's one of my biggest problems with it overall. Next up at number 9, I have Ant-Man 2 / Ant-Man and the Wasp with a score of 8.5. I legitimately enjoyed this one in the theater. This one was a much lighter tone, which I needed. The plot was really solid. I love Scott Lang as a character. He's fun. Hope was a good character, and I like Hank Pym and Cassie. The effects are good, as always. The antagonist was very interesting in the form of Ghost. It had great humor from people like Luis, as always. The action sequences were phenomenal. And then I gotta say, yeah, again, the pacing's a bit off. Character development was okay, but there wasn't a ton of it. And the ending was a bit weird. I'm not gonna go into that, but overall, I don't have too many negatives here. It was a pretty solid film. Next up is going to be my number 8 pick with a 9.0, 9 out of 10. Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Oh boy, this one's amazing. I've talked about Bucky Barnes before in my review of this movie, how mysterious he is, how much I love him in this movie. He's such an interesting antagonist. This film gets points for having such a good plot and atmosphere and side characters. The twists are phenomenal. I love the teamwork between Steve and Natasha in this film, and I love Nick Fury in it. The writing's great. And the antagonists are great. You've got this whole Alexander Pierce story with Hydra, and then you've got Bucky Barnes, who's such an interesting antagonist for this. And the only major problems I have with this film are the pacing. It takes a while to get off the ground, and I was never a big fan of Captain America as the main character, so yeah. Those are my biggest problems with it. But overall, still a completely amazing movie. And this is a bit of an odd choice for me, but I legitimately love this movie. Number 7, a 9 out of 10 for me, is the original Thor. I know, but I absolutely love this movie. I love all the Thor movies for what they are. You know, I'm obsessed with Thor. If you don't know me, like, I have, like, 39 parts of fanfiction. I mean, technically that focuses on Loki and Sif more than Thor, but whatever. Sif, that I gave her own personality, and an OC I made up, like 2 OCs I made up, but let's not get into that. Anyway, I like Thor's character a lot more recently. I didn't really like Thor's character in the original movie, but the setting, and I love the graphics and the setting of it, how each planet feels distinct. The characters are really good. Everyone except Thor is just kind of a whatever. Again, I think Jane is a perfectly fine character on her own. I just don't like it when you bring in the romance, and the stuff between Thor and Loki and Odin is great. When it comes to negatives, I gotta say Thor and Jane, there's some issues of cohesion. It kind of goes all over the place. And then there's Angry Thor, but otherwise, I love this movie. Give it a watch if you haven't. It's one of the older ones, but I absolutely love it. Oh, next up at the, number 6, I have with a 9 out of 10, the original Avengers. Oh boy. I talked about this in my Unpopular Geek Reviews because I thought I was going to like it a lot less than I did, because I've seen this movie 3 times, and the first time I had no clue what I was doing. I was like 13 and hadn't seen any Marvel films, and I didn't understand it. And then the second time it was like, I have some problems with this. And then the third time it was like, dang, this is a good movie. And then at the end it was like, I have some problems with this, but it's still a good movie. So, yeah. Oh my goodness. You can check out my full review of that if you want to, but yeah. Gotta talk about the characters here. So many of them I care about so much, are so relatable, and just, if not relatable, at least interesting to watch. I love the dynamic between different characters here. You've got one of my favorite scenes in the movie where Natasha Romanoff just plays up Loki when he's in his cage thing, and I love where they're going with that, and where they're going with Natasha Romanoff. And Tony Stark is amazing in the movie. Captain America is a good leader for the Avengers, and honestly, yeah, that's about it as far as characters go. I mean, Bruce Banner's cool, but Hawkeye, Thor, again, old Thor, yeah, for me, whatever. So yeah, going back into this, the plot is really cool. The antagonist is good, obviously. The big picture, how it ties into everything with Thanos, is cool. There's a lot of good action sequences. The visuals are fantastic. The dialogue between characters is fantastic. It's written very well. The humor is also written very well. My biggest problems with the film are the oversaturation, the battle scenes / my problems with the characters, and the villain's plan / the plot of it. I gotta talk about how Loki doesn't plan ahead. I think I talked about this in my review of the movie. Next up at number 5, I have my top tier movies, my top 5. These are the ones I just love, absolutely. And I own most of these, so yeah, these ones are dope. Number 5 is the original Iron Man with a 9.5 out of 10. The characters are phenomenal in this movie. I love Tony Stark. I love Pepper Potts. Really, that's about it in terms of characters, but they're great. The plot is really solid for being a first MCU film. The action is great for the time. The villain is pretty interesting. The setup for the movie, it's a good movie. It sets up a lot of things. The only negatives here, again, are the pacing, and there are some problems with the villain, but yeah, it's an extremely solid time, and I love it. Next up with a 9.5 out of 10, number 4, Black Panther. The setting, I love what's going on in Wakanda. The visuals are fantastic. I love most of the characters. T'Challa being the least interesting of the bunch, in my opinion. I mean, you've got Okoye, Shuri, Nakia Killmonger. Wow, Killmonger is so interesting as an antagonist. I mean, even Claw's an interesting character. I love this movie, and the aesthetic of the film was pretty good too. It just looks great. So many good action sequences. The dynamic of it is great. I don't really have many negatives when it comes to this film. I guess the pacing could be a bit off at times, and there's a few things that aren't as good as people made it out to be, but yeah, really, this one's just a phenomenal movie in my opinion. Here it is, folks, the one you've all been waiting for / dreading me to rant about again. Number 3, 9.5 out of 10, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And you probably now know what my number 2 and number 1 are. Oh boy, I love this movie. I love the cartoonish graphics that look like a video game. I love the plot with Star-Lord / Jonah's father. I love all the characters in this movie, especially Yondu. Everyone loves Yondu. I think Ego is a fantastic villain. I love the emotional stakes between Gamora and Nebula going on here, and Ego and Star-Lord. The humor is fantastic. There's so many cool references to other MCU movies. The music is fantastic. It got me into a whole band, for crying out loud. The setup is phenomenal for the movie. The only negatives here would be how convoluted it can be at times. There's a quick twist in the vibe of the movie. It goes from being pretty lighthearted to, oh crap, Ego's gonna kill everyone, but I still love the movie. The tone in the movie is pretty uneven at times for that reason. And a lot of characters bicker amongst themselves and insult each other. I think that's part of the charm of the Guardians of the Galaxy. They're funny when they do it. I know people didn't like them bickering at each other, but I thought it was good. And what? Good night. And my number 2 pick, which is Captain America: Civil War. Oh, baby. I don't even know where to start with this movie. Oh my goodness. I have so many positives to this one. You saw my review of this movie. This one I've seen more recently. My number 1 I've seen more times. You know what my number 1 is at this point. Trust me, it was a close call between number 2 and number 1 because this movie, jeez, this movie, I gave this one a 10 out of 10. Fantastic. So, let's start with the characters. I love each and every one of them. They're really compelling. I'll tell you about the main characters and primary side characters. The plot is fantastic. This is what I was telling you about earlier when I said this film is a non-stop, fast-paced action movie with emotional stakes and things that you care about. Even the main character is good this time. The title character, mind you. He's not really any more of a main character than somebody like Iron Man, but Captain America actually is interesting in this movie. Dude, the antagonists are so interesting to see. I mean, they're fighting against each other and against themselves, and Zemo is quite an interesting character as well. The backstory between these characters, especially with Tony Stark and Bucky, oh my god, it's amazing! The emotional stakes of revolving that is just so good. That final fight is amazing. The cinematography is amazing. It's so well written. It's so cohesive. It's so tight. It connects to everything else. It's perfect. It's amazing. I love this so much! The only negatives I have here is that it could be possibly confusing if you're trying to follow everything, and also there's a few unnecessary characters, like why the heck is Ant-Man in this, but outside of that, oof. This movie, dang. This freaking movie. Number 1. You all knew this was coming. You know my obsession with this movie. You know that I cosplayed as the villain. You know that this is like my favorite movie ever, except for like Star Wars. You know that like I'm obsessed with literally all the actors and stalked them on Instagram. You know that like I have fan fiction. You know that this movie is the best thing ever. It's 10 out of 10 from me. Thor freaking Ragnarok. I've seen this movie 5 times. I actually haven't seen it since my birthday because I'm busy and stuff, but wow. Probably one of the other reasons I haven't seen it is it makes me heartbroken every time I get to the end of the movie because bam, Infinity War happens. Like, dude, you can't just do that. I gotta say, and to be clear by that, I mean immediately thrusting a ship of refugees into terror and killing half of their race. I'm not talking about anything specific. I'm talking about the whole fact that they literally killed half the freaking race of Asgardians. Like, they're just dead. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, freaking any, like, characters or whatever, but it's still crazy. Like, what? Oh my god. But that's for Infinity War. We're not talking about Infinity War. We're talking about Thor Ragnarok, which, oh boy, yes, this movie's too funny. Yes, the pacing is horrible sometimes. It slows to a crawl in the Sakaar section. Yes, there's not emotions. Hey, there are emotional stakes in this movie. I feel emotions every time I watch this movie because I know what's going to happen after. Okay, seriously. That's a bit of an exaggeration saying that that's the only reason I feel emotions when I watch this movie. I think it's because all the actors are so good. Well, look, Chris Hemsworth got good, okay? He got a lot better at these kind of roles. He's not supposed to be an emotional role. He's supposed to be funny. It's the actors around him that make it interesting or dynamic. Dude, the backstory with Hela... And the part where she just, like, brings down the freaking mural. Oh my god, dude. That is, like, the best scene ever. I can't get over it. That is, like, the best freaking scene. And it's, like, a hidden message. It's, like, about colonialism or whatever. It's, like, a hidden message in there. I saw people online talking about it. Like, how Taika Waititi was talking about, how, like... I forget what the line was. It's, like, something about how he has it, but it's a shame how he got it. And I was like, oof, realizing Odin used to be like this freaking tyrant, which adds to what we saw in Thor 2 when Loki's like, says something about that when he's in jail. He says something about, he basically, I forget what the line is, but it's something about how he hasn't killed as many people as Odin has or something, which is, like, so true. And it's like, what the, and look, I'm not trying to side with anyone here. It just brings that into perspective when you realize, like, that's kind of a throwaway line, and then you're like, whoa, Odin, but just step back here, dude. You need to chill out. Dude, the setting, Asgard is always phenomenal. I think Sakaar is a cool planet. Dude, this movie, again, it looks phenomenal. It looks like a freaking comic book, which is, it should look like. The humor is top-notch. I mean, for a film with this many jokes, the fact that 99% of them land, in my opinion, is what's phenomenal in and of itself. I mean, Chris Hemsworth is funny. He's a comedy sci-fi actor. Chris Hemsworth is the perfect guy for Men in Black, which he's supposedly doing next year. The point is, you take a look at someone like Tom Hiddleston, who could do Shakespeare or Bond or whatever, and then you take a look at Chris Hemsworth, and you're like, ha 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 ha, but it works so well for what they're doing with Thor. Like, he couldn't do anything else. He's not a good actor by any means, but when it comes to the role of Thor, they've written him in a way that he's gotten so good at it. It's like, dude, he's so good. Like, in the movie, I mean, he's gonna be great in Men in Black. He's a great comedic actor. He's not a serious actor at all. And when he tried to be serious, it didn't work. I think Chris Hemsworth found what works for him, and that's why I love the movie. Oh my goodness. He is spot on. Yeah, he's kind of dumb and slapsticky, but it works for him. Again, I think it brings out the best acting style for Chris Hemsworth. Oh, dude, the characters in this movie, all of them are so compelling. The fact that Loki, Valkyrie, and Hela only get about 12 to 13 screen time minutes each, and yet they're all so compelling. Valkyrie's a newcomer in the movie. Based on, comparatively by screen time, she's barely in it, but her presence is so compelling. I can't, like, oh my gosh. The action sequences are top-notch. I mean, the plot outside of the getting out of Sakaar part is so good. The stuff with Hela, there's so many good moments in this film. So many references to other films. I love the part where, of course, Hulk is in their arena with Thor, and when he starts beating him up, and I forget what Loki says, he's like, that's how it feels or something, because of what happened in the first Avengers film. And, like, there's so many, like, references to that, and, again, the family dynamic of these movies, adding Hela into the equation, that's something new going on there. Dude, the score is good. I can't get over this movie. The history of Asgard. Again, I talked about this. There's so many, like, interesting things here. I love what they did with Thor and Loki in this movie. Instead of saying, oh, well, come fight with me, or whatever, like, I need your help. Come on, do a thing. He's just like, go away. He's just like, I don't care anymore. And that's, like, where it comes into being, where it's like, oh my god, he's indifferent, which is a big deal, because, like, it's like, you've stopped caring about someone. It's like the point of, like, if somebody like betrays you to me, it's not even, you can't even be mad about it anymore. It's just like, dude, like, I don't even care. And that's so interesting to me. I hope I can get to the point where I'm not even mad anymore. I'm still mad at this bitch who betrayed me, but that's not the point. The point is that what they do with that is so interesting, the whole indifference thing. And then, of course, Loki comes back to Asgard. It's just like, what are you doing? It's so good. And, like, literally everyone is, like, important in this movie. I mean, even Heimdall is amazing in it. I mean, yeah, dude, this film, I could go on about this all day. I'll probably have to make, like, a 30-minute rant review about this movie alone, but I should probably stop right now. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. If you liked this video, click like, subscribe to my channel, tell me where I'm wrong, leave your ranking down below. I would be super happy to hear that, and oh boy, yeah, that was a doozy. I'm so glad it's finally gonna be out, assuming I can get the upload to work. Wow. Wow. And if you don't love me now, you will never love me again. I can still hear you saying, would never break the chain. And if you don't love